Hello, I am Reese Wallace, and this is the Cedar Log.
On this week's episode of the Cedar Log, Reese sits down with Ted McDonald, who is a longtime scout and scouter. Please sit back, relax, and enjoy.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but you worked at Resica from 1983 to 1986.
Yep. Those were my 4 summers on staff there.
Perfect.
I started camping there in the old Great Bend. My first summer was 79 as a first-year camper.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
Yeah, so I got into the Bend before they closed it.
Perfect. So then they closed that in 1980, right?
80 was its last summer. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, it was a strange situation when they closed it. There was a rivalry between those two camps, and I got to know a lot about it a little bit afterwards. But the Great Bend was doing very well when it was closed, and the Springs was more of a traditional program at the time. And so when they closed Great Bend, they moved a lot of the program staff down to the Springs and brought some of their program with it. And a lot of those people, their camp director included, went to Hart, believe it or not. So when you put that Hart photo from, I guess it was 81 or 82, it was just a little while ago on Facebook, I knew about a dozen people in that photo from when I worked at Resica. So, and I heard the stories of Dale Donor and all that stuff, who was the camp director there at Hart. So it was a pretty neat photo to see.
That's actually really cool. I never knew that people would come from Resica and like switch staffs like that. Huh. That's really cool.
Oh yeah, they're very loyal. And you've probably experienced this being a staff member. As a young person, you get really loyal to your program director or camp director, and you buy into the philosophy that's running the camp, and they very much brought the program they were running in the Bend and put it in the Springs, and that offended some people. And there was, I guess, an opportunity or an opening at Hart, and so a lot of people moved down to Hart for a couple summers, and everybody seemed to come back together in '83, which was my first year as a CIT. So a lot of things kind of came together in '83 that I was fortunate to experience.
Gotcha. So could you briefly tell me about your current role in scouting and kind of your scouting journey in general?
Oh, well, I've been a scout since cubbing. First time I was able to join, I did, and we started, I guess, in second grade or third grade back then. But yeah, right now I'm the council camping and properties chair. So we've got our hands full trying to get our properties opened again and running virtual programs as you know. So it is a kind of a weird time. I'm still active locally in my units. I'm the chartered org rep for a Boy Scout troop and a Cub pack. It's the troop I grew up in. So the Scout troop and pack that I was in as a kid, I was fortunate to be Scoutmaster, and I restarted that Cub pack after it had folded. And so I've served as its chairman, and now it's COR.
That's really cool. And then that kind of
Yeah,
ties into the other two questions. And then you're an OA member, correct?
I am. Yeah.
I'm
brother.
Yeah, your brotherhood. Did you keep it with
Yes.
Delmont or Unami? And like, when did you do your ordeal?
I should have looked that up. I did my ordeal when I was probably 13, maybe 14.
Okay.
And I did it at Delmont, right along Unami Creek, where the frogs kept me up all night.
Okay.
It was definitely Delmont Lodge then. And, we really used to, our lodge weekends were mob scenes, where it's just people coming out of the woodwork at Delmont. And then at Resica. And I did take my brotherhood. I was a chapter chief and a lodge vice chief. I was the vice chief north of Delmont Lodge in '86, I guess it was. So I did I was very much into the word of the hour when I was a scout.
Gotcha. And then you're getting you are receiving your Vigil, so you are your Vigil. So congrats on that.
Tickled, just thrilled. Never thought it would happen, to be honest. But when I was a scout, not many scouts were were given the Vigil honor.
Yeah.
Practically had to be the lodge chief, and I
Yeah.
was vice chief. So, different time, but a
Yeah.
good time.
It must be interesting to kind of have your start in the OA with Delmont and then still kind of doing some stuff with Unami, and then you're going to keep your Vigil with Unami. So that must be a special treat to kind of have both worlds in your life.
Yeah. Dave Fortunato was a real good friend of mine.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we had a couple, we'll call them back porch conversations during the merger.
Mm.
And Dave really had the best intentions of everyone in his heart, not at heart.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a nice, the merger was a really good idea. A few of us thought we should get a new name, but you can't give up Unami 1. You really can't. So,
yeah. Alrighty, so kind of diving into the Resica stuff properly. So you worked
Sure.
at Big Springs then, correct?
Spring Scoutcraft, yes.
Oh, Scoutcraft. How was that?
Scoutcraft guy all the way. That's right.
Okay, so what positions did you hold during your few summers?
Right. So I started out as a CIT, and the CITs, I only spent 1 week not working at Scoutcraft, where we rotated around camp, and I spent a little time at the pool, and but yeah, I was pretty much the cooking merit badge kid for my CIT year. Very different badge then.
Yeah, I can
You
imagine.
could do it at camp. But yeah, and I came back and wound up doing a lot of pioneering and camping merit badge, the really big classes, right? The camping merit badge classes. So I did that for a few years, and then I was the area director in '86
Mm-hmm.
for Scout.
Okay.
Yeah, it was great.
Really cool to kind of like progress in one area. Must be a lot of proud moments there.
Yeah, we built. We always had these great big ideas. We built a bridge across the Bushkill. We built a 2-span monkey bridge that was, and each span was at least 75 feet long. So it was, and we had a 30-foot tripod tower in the middle of the Bushkill River that we threaded this thing through.
Oh my goodness!
And that we conceived that when I was a CIT, and so we kept building and building up the program area down there.
Mm-hmm.
And one year we even built a flagpole on the parade field opposite where the flagpoles were at the time, and our flagpole was as tall as the American flagpole. So we ran retreat one night at Scoutcraft, and it was fun. And then we cooked dessert for the whole camp. Nothing like making 60 cobblers, but there was never there was a very big can-do attitude among the staff there, and we just tried to come up with different ways of what we were doing, and we just had fun.
Cobbler Nights are definitely fun. I was able to experience one at the Philmont Training Center, so I know exactly what you mean. Those are some real good fun.
Yeah. We had to start right at lunchtime to get enough coals so we could make cobblers for everyone. It wasn't until like the third week we did it that the camp cooks let us use their pizza ovens. So we kind of ran through the woods around back with the big sheet trays of cobblers, and then we had the demo out. But the first couple of weeks, that was a lot of work. Didn't have any leg hairs for months after that summer from all the fires.
I was about to say, yeah. So Scoutcraft, was it located I guess like along the creek there, so kind of where the Native American village is today, or some other location?
No, actually, we're I guess Dan Beard or Scoutcraft, they kind of merged the areas, I believe. Across the ravine from the dining hall is where the pavilion is, and we used to do wilderness survival on the plateau right before it drops straight down to the river, and there's a couple switchbacks. If you went straight down to the river, and there's a fish dam there. I believe there's still a couple jacuzzis in the fish dam, but that big pool area, I understand it was renamed. We called it River Country, but we had a River Country flag and everything. That's where we built the bridge and had the tower, and we even did the overnight, the outposts on the other side of the river, and that was ridiculous because it took us an hour just to cross the river with everyone in their gear. So if there was the slightest chance to rain, we scrapped it and just kind of camped somewhere closer.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
So what made you join the Resica staff?
Friends.
Okay.
Working up at or not working, but camping at Resica was so much fun. And I had a friend who was on staff, John
Mhm.
McDermott. He wound up being the program director there in '86. John's a great friend, and he was from my home unit. And
Okay.
so he and a buddy of mine, we signed up together. I've dragged him along to the camping committee today, Todd Shuren.
Okay.
He and I became best friends when we were about 12, and we went to camp together when we were 15, and we're still friends. So
No, that's really cool.
yeah,
I can also relate to that. I kind of dragged some of my troop mates, and they dragged more troop mates on the camp staffs, both at
that's the
Muster
way
and
it's supposed to
Resica.
work. Yeah,
So I know exactly what you mean.
yeah.
So who were the camp directors during your time?
So my first program director was Bob Johnson, and the reservation director at the time was a guy named Bill McLaughlin.
Okay.
And Bill had a big Southern accent. He was a real joy. Um, and so I worked for Bob Johnson, and then I worked for a gentleman who's now Father Mike Clotton, but at the time he was just Mike.
Okay.
And Steve Parente, and the reservation director became Steve Hammonds, who is now at the Westchester Putnam Council in New York. I haven't done a great job of keeping up with them, but I have tried to keep in touch with these folks over the years. All of them really meant a lot to me. So
So did the sub camps have proper camp directors, or was it kind of just like the reservation director and then just a program director for each sub camp?
we had the reservation director was usually a staffer
Okay.
of the council, and the program director was hired for the summer. And
Ah.
they pretty much did the same thing up at Firestone. There was a guy named Bill Davis who was a staffer who was running the program up there. Although he took the title of camp director, we didn't necessarily have a camp director in the springs because of the reservation director
Okay.
being on site for the summer. So, Steve Hammonds was he was pretty good. He was very motivating. He lived on the Eli farm at
Oh.
Musser year round, and was Jim Burkhart and his friends. Trying to think of some other names. Billy Huntsberger, sorry, and that crew. They would run weekend projects almost constantly. There was no need to wait for an OA weekend to do some service at Delmont. It was constant in those days. It was neat.
Yeah, I never knew
Keep bringing
anyone.
that back.
Gotcha. I never knew anyone lived at Eli Farm. That's gonna make digging up anything there and metal detecting a little more interesting for me in the future.
Well, you'll find lots of dog things because Steve had a lot of dogs when he lived on that property. At one point, he had 7 different dogs living on that property, and that was probably 86, 87, somewhere in there. Yeah.
Oh goodness, I was just hoping to find old colonial stuff because the muster staff we found a few old medicine bottles just
Oh,
at
cool.
heart. I
Yeah.
had 2 of them, so I was just hoping to find other stuff like that. But all right, I'll keep in mind when we find dog stuff. Perfect. And then who were the camp rangers during your time, if you can remember?
There was Matt and Charlie
Mm-hmm.
up at Resica, and I'm told they're both Charlie the Rangers, but one gentleman's last name was Matalavich, so he went by Matt the Ranger, and Charlie Vargason went by Charlie. So we had 2 Rangers living across the street from the White House. Those 2 houses across the street used to be the Rangers' residences,
Okay.
and they lived there. And we kept either the reservation director or we had a regional guy living at the White House for a while. A guy who
Oh.
Russ Zegan, who retired into the White House for some reason. So it was always, the story was never fully shared with the CITs, but the White House was much more an admin building then.
Kind of like how Unami Lodge is used as an administration building during the summer.
Yeah. That was the trading post.
Oh, okay.
That Unami Lodge job, that was, if you go and you look at Trooper Lodge,
Mm-hmm.
Trooper Lodge and the base they built Unami Lodge on were twins. They were the same style building, just like the dining hall at the Bend and the old dining hall at the Springs were kind of cookie cutters of this
Yeah.
same style building that they did at the time. But so the camp office was where the trading post is now, and
Gotcha.
the trading post used to be in the big section of the building we now call Unami Lodge. But
Gotcha.
yeah.
And then could you tell me anything about Firestone and Fawn Run? Because I kind of understand Firestone was like I know it was an explorer base, and then it was kind of like, I guess, more high adventure, and then it seemed like Fawn Run was just more of a program than a proper camp. So I'm just trying to learn more about the two.
Yeah, particularly when I was there. When I was there, Fawn Run was much more of a program
Mm.
than it is now, or we're trying to make it now. It reached its height, I think, in the 70s when it was written up in Boy's Life, which you may have heard. It was called the Philmont of the East in a
Yeah.
Boy's Life article, and we'd love to get some of that back. But Firestone was, I'll tell you, a real good friend of mine, Brett Wells, who was a director. He when he went to college at, I guess it was Paul Smith College, and he went into the profession, as they say. He joined the professional scouts, and he came back, and while he was in college, he was running Firestone during the summers as a camp director. And so I went and kind of hung out with him for a bit, and Firestone was so cool. It had such a neat vibe about it. It was a very laid back camp. You could just hearing the kids in the woods, and it's such an idyllic location. And having those campsites filled it's really spectacular. But yeah, it was, but they could only run for 4 weeks. I think that was their max. Even then they were struggling, obviously. There was one summer where they, somehow drained. They were doing some service on the dam at Lake Ann, and they drained. They couldn't fix the stop valve, so they wound up draining the lake. And so we had to put the swimming areas in Cool Dip. We literally put tripods and safety lines across Cool Dip for the campers to swim in, because there's no pool up there. They were using the lake for some of their. There was a second dock for swimming there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was a pretty cool spot. Firestone was neat, but again, they couldn't run it. And what they wound up doing, particularly in the middle 80s there, they would shut down after 4 weeks, pack up that camp, go down to Delmont and run what we called a science and energy camp, which was like a specialty merit badge camp for 1 week. And so, you ran that specialty energy camp, and for, I guess, 6 weeks before that, we would run Weeblos weekends, Cub Dad weekends. So a lot of retired staff and Firestoners all were hanging out at Delmont, which was a pretty cool use of the space, a good use of getting all those staff members, particularly the ones who needed to get real jobs. They came back, and we got them for weekends and whatnot over the summer. So it was cool.
Yeah, I've been going through the photo slides from the council archives, and I found a lot of photos from those Cub Dad weekends. So that's really
cool. And that's going to be my interview for you. I was watching. I saw the one thing you did, which was actually a mixture of a couple slide trays. I think one of the camp promotion slides, because that was one of my gigs as I did the lodge training one year for how to do camp promotions, and you get your slide carousel and this audio cassette, and you bring your boombox, and we'd give them a script. But those slides, I was also a camp photographer. I took a bunch of those. So it was very cool, but I was wondering how you converted them to digital. So that'll be that's for my interview of you. Okay.
Yeah, gotcha.
I don't know if you're going to edit this down, but I'm very interested how you scan the slides.
Yeah, we can talk after, like, I guess my questions are over, and then we can talk. Alrighty. Perfect. We already kind of talked about Fawn Runs, so it's just a specialty programming. So what was your experience like on the Resica staff?
Oh, it was family. You know, and Resica runs a long summer.
Yeah, they
7
do.
weeks is a long time. And I caught pneumonia one summer and didn't go home. I convalesced in my tent. I just didn't want to go. I didn't want to leave. So it was just you created the whole idea of scouting, and I tell this is we create these little societies. We create our own little world. Your unit, your patrol, you find a way to get together and live together and survive and thrive.
Mm-hmm.
And on a very high level, the summer camp staff is just a really big extension of all that. You find a way to live together. You cobble these crazy platforms together and build decks, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's just it was family.
No, sounds like it was a really good experience.
Yeah.
So how large was a typical summer season during your time, like camper wise, would you say?
I should know this. I do. Here I am, the council camping guy, and I'm talking numbers all the time with how many campers we have, and we broke 800 virtual campers.
Yeah.
So, but I seem to think, there were a bunch of summers where we had people eating meals on the porch of the dining hall.
Okay.
So we were in the 500s, I'm going to say, on the big weeks. And the small weeks were probably down into the 200 to 300s. The last week's always the lightest.
Yeah.
But that second week of the summer, they seem to flex things a little early now because, this is their first week, but they would have already been camping for a full week had they run a normal summer. That 4th of July week, that was always very busy, hot and busy.
Before we continue with this interview, I would just like to leave a few reminders to pay your lodge dues. As we know, 2020 was a rough year for us all, but Unami Lodge has made a promise that 2021 will be the best lodge year yet. So pay your dues so you can be part of all the fun activities that we have planned. Now back to Reese and Ted.
So I saw in my Comforts book, "Till the Falls Fall No More," that the council was starting to reinvest a few $1,000s in 1981 into Resica, and I was wondering if you kind of saw any of those impacts through your time.
One of my fun jobs one summer was to take all these metal signs and talking about your capital campaign dollars at work, and I had to put them up on a few places. But it kind of still felt like we were doing all the work. So, I didn't know the business side of it. So I didn't see it. I know we remodeled the old campfire area right off the parade field. And, but, we re-roofed a couple buildings, but, I'm really not aware of them. The pool's been rebuilt twice since then. And I know that's always been a huge capital expenditure. But I'm not really. I don't know what they were doing with all the money.
I mean,
I try to keep a good eye on it now, but then I was not keeping a good eye on it.
I mean, you were a CIT and a Scoutcraft guy. I mean, you were too busy building things and.
Yeah. Give me an axe or a sledgehammer, and we're gonna. And as a CIT, we dug lots of holes. And if you've ever been to Resica and your job was to dig a hole, not pleasant.
Yeah.
I was a scrappy little dude, but I had to dig a lot of holes. A lot of holes.
Yeah, I can relate. I can understand that experience as well. So could you describe what camp kind of looked like physically, like the layout, the facilities? Because I know things have definitely changed since then, so I didn't know.
I'll tell you, it feels a lot bigger now. I mean, the reservation hasn't gotten any bigger, but we've expanded the springs all the way up into Great Bend. We used to pretty much end at the Chapel Road, and the two ranges came together there. And I don't know if your record book tells you, the one on the left was the Springs rifle range, and the one on the right was the Great Bend rifle range. They literally met there. That's where the camp borderline was. And so you'd come down and they could have a combined chapel service too down the road. And actually Two Feathers, you can tell by the names. Big Springs had all the Indian names, but like Running Bear, Two Feathers, those were, Bear Claw, Eagle's Nest, those were all the Great Bend names. So like, yeah. So those sites were Great Bend campsites. So in those early years, I mean, we took over the Two Feathers and stuff like that, but we used it. We tried not to use it if we didn't have to. So we really, it's grown. The arena's big, a lot bigger than the old campfire area. We used to jam folks in there, but it certainly does feel big. The dining hall is obviously a lot bigger. The old dining hall with the plaques up was something I really liked. I'd love to find a way to get plaques up again. I'm sure some people listening just groaned. But
possibly, but
yeah,
I personally like the plaques because I love walking into Cedar Dining Hall and looking around, and also like Novi Bosco and other places they have the plaques, and I personally like them too. But there must be some reason why they don't do it.
Yeah.
So what other kind of facilities are like I know you were mentioning that the trading post was kind of where Unami Lodge is now.
Yeah.
Like, different like facility changes like that. I don't know if there was any other buildings that were different or there's anything else kind of like major.
So we use Brooks and Cox for handicraft and nature.
Mm-hmm.
And, so that area where you've got the ecology area now, I really like what you've done. I like that too.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't necessarily have a big first-year program like they have now with the Resica Rangers or Dan Beard or whatever you call it, and that's really got to be a big focus. The new Handicraft Lodge is awesome. I'd love to do something on that scale for the first-year program. It's really I think that's where we need to invest next. We didn't have that pole barn on the parade field, nor did we have a basketball court. We tried to make sure the big area. Scoutcraft would take, I would say, a big chunk of that field on the other side of the ravine, and we'd put a model campsite. We'd put a couple monkey bridges up and make sure we'd have some physical pioneering projects to make sure it felt and looked like a scout camp. So that was always from a Scoutcraft perspective something we tried to do.
Did you guys
where those ping pong tables are now? We had all kinds of games. Yeah. We had the heaving bar. Who does the heaving bar anymore? I don't know.
I don't know what that is, but doesn't sound too sounds a little difficult.
It's incredibly simple. The heaving bar is it's a bar lashed up 12 feet in the air, and you've got a coil of rope, and the thing is they time you. There's a stake, and the coil sits on you're supposed to wing the rope over the line, tie a timber hitch, run back, hoist it up, and clove hitch on the stake, and you're supposed to be timed how fast you can do it. So the old heaving bar, it was a classic, I'm telling you. Tons of fun on the heaving bar.
Did the Scoutcraft staff ever build like those like huge towers, like I guess observation towers? Or I don't know, what would you call them?
There is a great photo of they used to build one that used to be their big project up at Great Bend every year.
Yeah.
They discouraged us for building huge. And the way we got away with building the 30-foot tower we put in the river was if anyone fell off it, they'd fall into the water. So, some folks later told us we needed safety lines and people needed to wear PFDs, but it was before we were hyper aware of the danger we were putting people in. So, no 30-foot towers, but we certainly put up some big flagpoles and we always had we had monkey bridge kits on the field. So if you wanted to learn how to put one up, we had a kit there to put up. So we always kept one up and one next to it. So we'd alternate who was putting it up. It'd be like the Monday afternoon project for Pioneer Merit Badge. Day one, you built something, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that was cool.
That must have been earlier Resica that was building those towers, because I have a bunch of photos of them building and then climbing said towers.
Yeah, I will bet you Bob Johnson is in those photos. He's the gentleman I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
He was a Scoutcraft director before he was a program director at Great Bend and then the Springs, and
Mm-hmm.
apparently he was pretty notorious for building outrageous towers.
That would explain all the photos I've been finding in the archive.
And he was also the guy taking all the pictures. So
I like him already.
yeah.
Alrighty. And then, were there any other staff members that had a particularly like big impact on you during your time there?
During my time there, Bob Johnson, Father Mike, Steve Hammonds, I became really close with the former director of Great Bend, Bill Kane, later in life. I actually worked with his son for a number of years and then ran into him over at Novi Bosco. You mentioned that.
Yeah.
So Bill Kane's a great guy. Still very active. He's an inspiration, but yeah, a lot of really great people from that era that just I still think of not every day, but most days I think of them regularly, and I keep in touch with a good number of them. Steve Berinsky from the Springs, and Great Bend, real good guys, real good people.
Yeah, that's quite the list. So it seems like
Oh yeah,
they really were that family for you.
oh yeah, still is.
So were there any traditions from your time on staff that are no longer done? An example is, I know early Resica staff wore a particular tartan for like staff neckerchiefs. There might be some songs or skits or just like goofy things you did at Colors that is no longer done.
Yeah, that tartan neckerchief was a Dale Donor thing.
Yeah.
And that went to heart, as I mentioned earlier. Geez. Christmas, I'm sure they're still doing Christmas in July. As a unit leader, I'd bring an artificial tree because that was always our week to go camping. Because what could be more fun than setting up an artificial tree in the woods?
Yeah.
So yeah, I've kept a few of those things just going with me, but it was all good stuff. There was we found out that they were registering all the staff members. Everybody gets registered in a venture crew.
Mm-hmm.
We found out at the time in the 80s that it was an Explore post, and they asked permission to activate the Explore post so we could actually run BSA weekends. And the Explore post was 777, and so I wound up being an officer in the Explore post for a couple of years. And exploring was very different.
Yeah.
There were big exploring weekends at Delmont back in the day, and there'd be a few hundred people, and they'd be like, their Saturday night activity was a dance.
Yeah, I found those photos too. I found so many exploring photos in the photo slides, and like exactly what you said at Delmont, like boating and on the ranges, and then the dances and I guess the big E dinners they had annually, I'm assuming.
Yeah, neat stuff. I'll tell you. You really tapped into a lot through those photos, haven't you?
Yeah, and I've been utterly confused as I've looked through them. I've been like, just what is this?
You posted something on Facebook, and it started with the Delmont Lodge, the Red Indian, the semi-transparent slide, and I was going through it. I was like, oh, I could tell this was a presentation from like 84, and then all of a sudden we jumped to the 70s, and then we jumped ahead. So it's been jumbled up on you, so it's going to be hard to decode all that. So
yeah, that it's been a struggle because just how the bundles were already when I opened the boxes, like how they were already sorted, and then a lot of it was just loose slides. So I was kind of just arbitrarily saying, okay, I'm gonna like put this corner in as like one bundle. I'm gonna make this corner like. Yeah, it was quite the process. But so you mentioned you were on the camp promos and you were making a lot of those like slide projections and stuff.
One of my you get the other duties
Mhm.
But you know, back in the day, we had to use film cameras.
Mhm.
So I got a roll of slide film every week, and so I took one roll of film. The program director took another roll of film,
Mhm.
and sometimes we went into a third roll of film. But there were, you know, about 10 shots I had to take each week, and then just whatever else came up, and we would develop it on site Friday, and then do a slideshow for the Friday night campfire.
Okay.
So all those pictures have been archived, collected, saved, made into promo shows. So one of the jobs I had was to be one of the camp photographers while I was there,
That must
on
have
top of
been,
everything else.
yeah, that must have been fun.
It was great.
It sounds like you kind of did a lot even when you were quote unquote just a Scoutcraft guy. It seemed like you were still kind of had your hands in a lot of different things.
We tried to be competitive with the other areas too. So,
Yeah.
Scoutcraft, there was some Scoutcraft pride. So,
Yeah.
we tried to make sure no one showed us up, sort of, not in a bad way, but certainly a good way.
I know what you mean.
The competition got a little out of control once or twice, but we won't talk about that.
Yeah, we do some competition too, and then we usually just goof around and have the Cub Scouts carry an odd item. I usually send rocks to archery because they go
Yeah.
after the Native American village. So I find a rock from the quarry and I give it to them, and the archery staff then make like sculptures out of it. So I know what you mean.
Very good.
Kind of goofy things like that. That kind of answers all of my Resica questions, and then just kind of all the miscellaneous stuff. Thank you for answering all of them, because now a lot of those photo slides make sense, and now I'm kind of getting through these interviews, I'm getting a much better sense of Resica history and kind of the flow and how things worked. So thank you very much for that.
Oh, this is a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of The Cedar Log. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact us by our email, history@unamilodge.org, or you can follow us on our Instagram and Facebook, which is promptly named History Committee Unami Lodge 1. Also, if you'd like to see many of the pioneering projects and pictures that Reese and Ted talked about, you can find them on our Throwback Thursday post on our social media. But anyway, thank you, stay safe, and enjoy your day.
Watch.